Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be building a Google Form replica using Next.js. If you haven't used Google Forms, it's basically a system that enables you to create a form. It could be for a questionnaire, it could be for research purposes, but you're able to specify how you want your questions organized, if they should be multi-choice, if they should be filled in, and if they should be maybe some paragraph. This is what a Google Form looks like. So you're able to create questions, you're able to select the question type. We would not be implementing all these types, but I will show you the basic types and you can infer how to do the rest of those from that. So we're going to be making a simple form. And at the end of the day, we would have a form where we're able to select, say, a short answer, a paragraph, and maybe a multi-choice. Let's jump in. To get started, I've gone ahead to make a blank template, and this is just a blank Next.js app. I've configured my content to look out for the pages route and also to look out for the components route. I've also added a Tailwind CSS form plugin, which just makes our form look pretty nice. And I have applied a simple style. What this does is this gives us some navigation bar. We've labeled it form builder, and then we're wrapping this as a header to our component. And if you look at this, we just have an empty function for home, and all it says is home. If we were to preview this, I have this running. So if we were to preview this, what we would see is we would have this simple page here. Shows our home text. So to build a form, we need to think of how a form actually works. If we look at the Google form, once again, what we can see is a simple question is made up of a couple parts. And the first part is the label or the question part, what we want the question to say. The second thing we could see here is the type, which says either a short answer, a paragraph, or multiple choice. And then we have a bunch of extras, which can be lists that goes with that. So in order to build this, we would start by creating something to hold our question, and nothing better to do that than to start holding our form content in state. So the first thing I would do is to create a component. I'll call this form content and set form content. And we're going to say this is state, and we want this to be an empty array for starters. And basically what we're doing here is we're creating this component that would hold our array of fields, of form field values that we're going to create. I need to style this a bit just to give it some nice look and align it with what we have. So I'm going to say class name, throw this in a container. I want this auto so it can be centered. I'll give this a horizontal padding of 4, and let's see, I want this to fit my screen. And save this. Something else I would like to add is another div. I'll use this div for a header. Maybe I'll need another div. I'll use this div for the form content. So content would go here eventually. And what I would like to do here is to add, let's say, H1. And in our H1, I'm going to call this form maker, form builder. And I'll add another H2. And I can call this untitled form. This wouldn't look good without styling. So let's see, class name, say, want this flex. I want this to take the entire space. So I'll give it with full. Vertical spacing. What do I want? Let's try 1. I'll try to see. Vertical margin, I'll use a 4. And for these classes, say 2 Excel text should be enough, and just make it bold so that it's obvious it's a heading. And for the H2, we would go with just text large maybe. Let's see how that looks in the browser. So yeah, that's looking nice. Okay. So let's go back to this, and the other thing we need to do is I'd like my form to look proper form. So I'm going to apply a background here, say background height. I'm going to say shadow large. I want rounded corners, medium rounded corners. I want the padding of 5 for everything. And then I want my vertical margin. See how 10 looks. I'll just throw in a text here that says test. And let's look at this in the browser, and it's good. Okay, now that we have this, I would keep a boilerplate here. And the first thing I want to do here is we know we're going to be making use of form content. So we want to map through that form content, taking field. I'm going to be opening this up because I might be doing a bit of calculations there. Let's throw in a div for now, and let's just say test sample, and our child is going to be called field, and maybe let's take the index for now and see what we can do with it. Have an index, and we don't have a field yet, so it's fine. If we refresh this, go back to our browser, look at it, we don't have anything, which is fine. So to start building out sort of our form, the first thing I would like to do is to have maybe a button and that we could click and say add form or add question, since we're building some type of question bank. And to do that, what I'll do here is after this, I'm going to throw in another div. And what I want to do with this div is I'm going to make it relative. I just want it to be to house my component that would be at the bottom of the screen. So I want that add question to always be under or down. I'd give it a padding of 5. And then now I could throw in my button and give it absolute, but let me use a div in case I need to throw more things into that button. Class name, I'll say absolute, and Tailwind has a bunch of CSS styles that make this easy. So I'm saying insert x0. So I'm centering this. And the other thing I want to do is bottom 0, which means it's going to go to the floor. And I will set a height for this. Let's see, 12. I need to set a display. I'll say flex, and let's justify it to the center. That whatever we throw in here would be in the center. And I'll throw in a simple button, and let's see how our button looks. This is just going to be called add question. We're going to come back and style it when we look at browser. So going to the browser, we have this. It says add question, looks about right. Let's go back and style our button. So we're going to add class to a button, and something I like with buttons is saying inline flex in case I try to use icons or something else in it. I would say gray, let's say 800. We need a hover for it so that we know when we're hovering over the button, and we say gray 700 maybe. See how it looks. And something else I'd like to do is to say item center. I'd also like to give it a bit of a padding, and for our text, say small. We could go preview this in the browser and see how it's looking. It looks good, but our text is black, so we could change that by saying we want our text white. Should look good. So now that we have this, it's looking good. I'm just going to clean it up a bit. I love rounded corners, so I'm going to say rounded medium. And there we go. We have the first part of our form. What we're going to be doing next is we're going to add a function to this form or to this button where when you click on the button, we're going to add a new item, and then we're going to render that item. So now that we have this all set up, we go back to our code and create that function to add a new field. So I'm going to make a function. I'm going to call it add form field. Or let's make it very descriptive. Add question. And arrow function. This is what we have. So what we want to do here is inside here, we're going to define what a field is. So, and what makes up a field, like we talked about at the beginning of the video, we're going to have a name. So be a name, something that identifies our field. And the way I would go about it, I want it to be unique. I could say the name would be question underscore, maybe a number, just something to make it unique without overly being complex. So I'm going to use form content.length so that every time we click on this, it's going to just increment it on the length we have. So we'll make that. The other thing we talked about was a label. So the label is what we want to show as the question. I'm going to say untitled question, and this would be editable in the future. And another thing I would say is the question type. So if we look at Google Forms once again, I think we had a bunch of different types. Let's take a look at the Google form. So we have short answer, a paragraph, and a multi-choice. So going with that, I would say let's call this short answer for a start. And eventually we're going to have the rest. So we're going to have something like paragraph, maybe we'll do one more multi-choice. The rest will be very similar to what we have here. And if it's going to be multi-choice, at some point we're going to have a list of options. I'll just call it a list for now. Put it there. So we're going to have a field. And basically, it's as simple as that. The next thing we need to do is to set form content. So we're going to be filling our form, going to pull out all the content of this and add our new field. And if we do this, whenever we click on that button, then automatically we should have a new question added. So on click, say, once you click on this, let's call add question, and that's about that. I do have a typo here, so save this. We should have our application running. So if we go back to our browser scene, we do have our button, and if we click on it, we have test. Click on it again, we have test, test, test. So what that means is that we have our application running. So add, add. That works. It means we have everything going as planned. The next step for us would be to go back to this and try to start rendering our form and seeing what we get. So the first thing we would like to do is we're looping through a bunch of fields here. Since our name is going to be unique, we can take away the index field and replace it with our field.name. So we'll say field.name for this. And the first thing we want to do is sort of display our label. So let's say label, and what our label is going to show is going to be the content of our field.label. And we won't style this for now, just to show that this works. And look at it. I'm going to refresh this and add a question, and we see untitled question. So it adds it, it works. And we're going to customize this even more. So to clean this up, something I'm going to do is to add a bit of styling to this. For styling, I'm going to say I want this to talk, little small text, font medium, and maybe text gray. Set red. We'll see how that looks, and want to capitalize, capitalize. And with this, we should have our form working well. So looking at this, something else that would make this a bit unique would be to sort of show us an option to select the type of question we want this to be. So do we want this to, we said a short answer, a paragraph. We want to be able to show what's being selected. And to sort of show that, we are going to make use of, we have this div here. We can only return one set of items here. So I'm going to clean this up, and then we'll put another div in here. And for this div, we're going to throw in a select. The reason I'm using select is so that we're able to change and taking up our different options. So for option, let's say our first option is going to be short answer. The next one we said it's going to be paragraph. And the last one, the multi-choice choice. And for our values, let's say it's going to text. We already have short answer here. And for the other value, with a paragraph and so on and so forth. So this, let's copy and paste. And now we can look at this in the browser and see. So kind of looks weird. We need to organize it, but the main point is that we have it displaying the way we would like to have it display. So to further clean this up, what I'll do is this div that covers all of it, I'm going to say I want it to be flex by twin, and I want item center, so we have everything really nice and centered. I like to format my code they work. So we have this div separate. For the div holding this, we could style it, but let's see how it looks first. And yeah, so we have that it and changed. So that's looking nice. The only thing I would like to add here is to add some sort of space vertically. Let's see how space two ways looks. So looks pretty nice. The next thing I would want to do on this would be to make it that whenever we sort of interact with this and try to toggle our answer, that we're able to select something and that it actually changes or updates. So that's what we're doing. So the next thing we want to do is make sure that when we select an answer type, that our question is affected. So we're able to change the type of answer it is. To be able to do that, first thing I would like to do is to show our field. It'll be nice to show our field so that we know what is actually being changed and what is being affected. So we have these as children here. Something else that would be nice to do would be the text, the form content, and I would create another div at the top just to wrap everything again. And under here, I'm going to be making use of a second div. And what we're going to be throwing here is we're going to be putting in display. So for short answer, we want to show just an input. For paragraph, we would show a text area. And for multi-choice, we'll show a select box. That's a bit easy. I'm going to add a class to this and let's just say 4 so that there's space and distinction between the both of them. And what I'm going to be doing here is I'm going to say if the field, the question type is equal to short answer, we want to render an input field. An input of type text, and we could assign a bunch of classes to this. The class name, give it padding of 5 and small shadow. looks. So if we look at this and go back to our browser, that doesn't seem like it's being rendered. Give it a refresh. Question the type, input type, it's going to be text. Let's see if we have a placeholder. If we add a placeholder, helps. So our placeholder, we could pass in our label here. That sort of helps with displaying that. So if we go to a browser, yes, we have that. So we have, as you can see, we have text area that says untitled question, untitled question. It's good. So we could further style this to make it look a bit nicer. See what we can make this nice. I'm going to say for height, let's fix this. And I'm going to round it. I love rounding. I'm going to say block. Let's make this take up the entire space in vision. So we go back to a browser and it's looking good. So now we're rendering what it should look like. And we're going to try out something for the rest of the fields. So I'll just take this, duplicate it, press this, hit it, and I'm going to say if this is a paragraph, what I want here should rather be a text area. And we have a text area. We don't need a type, rather we need rules. I would say 4 should be fine for now. We'll see how that looks and change it. So if it's a paragraph, it should be this. And if it's a multi-choice, just going up above to this. If it's a multi-choice, then we want something entirely different from what we have here, which should be select. And in that select, what we want to do is go through our list and map it. So we created lists as a property of field, and we haven't used it yet, but the plan was to use it as a placeholder, as a holder for the options. So we say option, and I'll call this item. And same way we'll say this item. So what else do we need here? We need a key. For now, I'm just going to say the key is an item, and the value, for value, I'm going to say it's also item. Just use things, item all the way. And this is what we're going to render. Nice to add some class to this, style it up. And I don't know how it will look, but I could as well get away with the same thing I have here. So put this, I format my code, make sure it's looking nice. And what I'll do is make a slight change here. I'll change this to paragraph so that when we add, it's going to be a paragraph by default, just so that we could see how it looks. And so if we go to our browser scene, we're going to see that we still have our old data. We're going to reload it, click add, and this looks like a text area because we can extend it and all. So that's nice. We're not setting this yet, so this doesn't show what it should be. We're going to go back and change it to multi-choice and see if our question type changed. So if we go back to browser to look at it, we add a new question and we see it's drop down, it's a select. So that means we're on the right path. So now we've done a bunch of things. We've added the display to tell us the kind of question it is. We can now start making some of our functionality work. The first thing I would like to do would be to at least first make it possible to edit our question name. So we want to be able to go to the browser, double click on untitled question, and it should open up in an edit mode. That's what we're going to do. In order to make the change we want on our label, the way I would go about it, and there are lots of ways to go about it, the way I personally would go about it would be to sort of create an onEdit. So when we double click on this div, for example, we could make it when we double click on this div, the label changes to an input, or we could make it when we click on this label, it changes to an input. Whichever one we do should work. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this, and we're going to be making use of special variable. So we're going to say, let's create something and store in a state. We're going to call this onEdit, and I've set onEdit. And basically, what this is going to do is we're going to use this to know when we've double clicked or not, and by default, we'll set this as false. And what we want to do here is we're going to say if onEdit, we're going to say show us an input box, else show us the label, right? So if we double click, we get this. If we don't, we get the other. Just to clean this up a bit, it's of type text. And what else? So the value we would show here, let's display our label, which is the text. So we want to create index where it looks like when you click on it, you still have the same set of text, and it would look really, really nice. So save that. The other thing we would like to do is go to our label, and what we're going to do on our label is we're going to say on click, and we could also make it to be on double click. I'll just make it on click. What we want to do is set onEdit to true. So we'll say set onEdit to true. That's all we'll do here. And we're going to go to our form and test it out. So we go to our browser, we add a new question, we go to untitled question, click on it, and we have this. We're not able to edit yet because we're not taking care of the values being updated. Okay, so now that we have our logic working, when we click, it goes to state and sets what we need. The next thing for us to do is to create that function to edit that field for us. And to do that, I'm just going to make a function. I'll call it edit field. And to edit the field, we're going to be taking in a bunch of values. So we need to know the field name that we're going to be editing. And something else we need to know is the new field label, or field text. I could, yeah, call it new field label, field text, so same thing. First things first, we want to pull out what we have in our state. So the current field, all the fields we have in our state, we want to make a copy of it. And we're going to say form content. This way we're making a plain copy and we're not going to tamper with our original state. The next thing to do would be the easier way without having to make it complex for me would be to find the index of that field in the form, of the field name in the form. So I'm going to say index of form field. So I'm going to find the index. So if we're looking for the name, we're going to be searching by name. So we're going to be finding the index of the name that matches with the name of the field we're trying to. So I'm going to say f such that f dot name would be equal to field name. And hopefully we find something. If we find something, our index should be greater than -1. So it should be 0 or above, and on where the index is. And the next thing I'm going to do is form fields, that index, so that we find the exact place it is. We say the label and say field. And the last thing will be set our form content to the form field. And that is an easy way to update this. So we're going to take our edit field and we're going to come here on input change. So on change, we're just going to pass this So the event that's going to be raised, we're going to take that event and pass it to edit field. An edit field needs a label, so we need to get the name of the field that we want to send. So we could say field dot name and then say our target value. So I believe with this, we should have, we should be able to update our text field and make whatever changes we want to make. So we go to the browser, this again, add a question, we click on it, untitled question is done. There you have it. We're able to edit this, we can clean it and say question one. Yeah, that works. Something else I'd like to add is when we exit this, we want to change this back to our label. And that's pretty easy to do. What we could do for that is to say on blur. So when we lose focus of that particular field, what we want to do is we want to set our set on edit to be false. And if we go back to our browser, we're able to change. And when we click out, it changes. We click on it, it adds. So that's how we edit the first question. So looking at what we have so far, we've been able to create a button where you can add a questionnaire and it sort of displays what you want. To start making this look a little bit more interactive, I'm going to add a second part below. And what I'm going to do with that second part is just show a preview, render a preview of the form as we're going, so that as we're adding things to the form, making changes, we're seeing real time how the form would look to a real user, even though we already have like context, but what we have on the browser still shows us the short answer part. It still shows us some editing part. So just showing you how you can reuse the same form, the same state to sort of show a full HTML form. To add that lower part where we would show a preview of our form, I would do a little quick style and probably replicate the same thing we have here, just rename it a bit. And for this, I'm going to call it form maker preview. I suck at naming things, so form maker preview, and almost similar to what we have here, if not similar to what we have here. I'm just going to take exactly what we have here, throw it below, and make a couple changes. I don't want everything exactly, but take it. We don't need this part where we add the question. We don't need this part where we show what was selected. We probably don't need the edit part also. And we could leave this part because it previews the form for us. And we could go preview this and sort of see how it looks. So yeah. So as you can see, we have our question, our form showing how it would show to the end user. And let's go edit this. So let's say, what is your name? And it looks like we have two-way binding, but that's because it's the same state. So this is what someone would see. And this is a select. So let's even change this and say, what is your favorite color, for example? And what would happen is, so my keyboard is actually mapped to British English. That's why it's looking for the U there. So now we have this showing pretty nice. Now that we have the preview showing for everything we want to do, the next thing I would like to do is to go back to our form and add the ability to toggle our question type. We had coded everything right now to be multi-choice. And if we go to, I believe, short answer as the default once again, what we could do is make it add the ability to toggle that field option. So to be able to toggle that field option, I'm going to make another class, another method or function, and I'll call this edit field type. And pretty much the same thing, with everything we have here. We'll also optimize this and make it nicer. But let's get it to work first, and then we can clean up and see what we're not using. So pretty much the same thing, field name, field label. The only difference would be we would call this question type and we'll pass the field label. And I believe this is all we should need to get this to work. So what we would do is we would say whenever someone selects the different type of question, what we want to do is display set the type. So come here and say on change, and on our on change, we're going to click then and pass this to it type, and same thing. We're passing field.name so that we know the particular form item we're talking to, and then the next thing we'll pass is target.value, which is pretty much the same thing like we did at the top. And now we should be able to sort of select whichever field that is. So let's go back to our browser and see. So let's assume on this to paragraph. It does change to paragraph. Like you can see, we now have our text area, short answer, each an input box. So it's working now and fired up. The next thing to do would be to make it possible for us to add list items to our form fields. In order to do that, what we need to do is the bottom of our select, what we could do is I'm going to add a div so that we could hold multiple elements, and I want them sort of styled. I'm going to say, let's give a spacing of 4 flex, let's say flex cool, and space items by 2. So we have this done, and I'll throw in another div, and this div is going to be holding our input for adding items to this. So in order to add an item, we're going to have an input of type text, and on change. So when this changes, we want to set the text. For now, I'm just going to add this to state, and I'm going to, let's say, set text. This is going to take our target of value, and eventually the value is going to be type text field. We're going to create that up, and we could add a placeholder. Let's say add an option. Yeah, that's that. The other thing I would like to do is add a button, and with this button, what we want is add. So it just says add. And to style it so that it looks good, say be green, have indigo, so 7. And when we hover over it, say 900, and we get to text, we want it awkward and horizontal pattern. So let's take a look at this in the browser. It says text field is not defined, which is right. So we go there and text field, add that to stay. And we have set text field. And with that, should have this work. So we go back and our form not working. We click on this, we have field equals question type, and that's a typo from me. So looking at this, properly written, what we want to do is take this div, the out, cut this out, throw this in here, and push this down. That way, should have the in this is something. Just drag back up and see where we're missing. Let's fix here and looking at the code, where have we gone wrong? And where we've gone wrong is want this to be here. I think that should fix it. So yeah, that fixes it. And if we test there and see multi-choice, now we have this text area to add an option and have the add button. So I'm going to just clean up the style on those and look a little shinier, nicer. And for this, I'm going to give it a style of a text space between, yeah, sort of spaced out really nicely, and in add for our input that just going to say flex one, nothing much with that, and that's enough to just something nice. The other thing I would like to do is to make sure that we take up the entire space. It look nice, and make sure that our text box. So in order to do that, what else? Then we have the select. We want it full, rounded. The next line we said flex space between. Last name one. For our button, what else? Yeah, good. Block. Yeah. And also for value, we said our value is text field, and for some reason it said false. But from that, we don't want that to say false anymore. We want that to just say text field. And what we want to do is add another function. We'll call this add field option. And pretty similar to what we had before. So instead of having the option part, what we're going to be saying here is we're and with a few people this. That's the only thing that would be changing. Something else we want to do, I'll probably just rename this option. We need to also make sure that our option isn't empty or isn't null, and option equal to empty string. As long as we meet those conditions, we should be able to append that to the list. Since we're making use of a text field, we also want to set our text field back to empty when we're done, so that looks as if it was cleared when we clicked on add. So after doing that, the next thing would be to go over here and say on click, and we're going to call this option add field. Add field option, and we're going to take our field name and author in text field. All right, taking our field name, text field. Nothing extra special about this. Still looking at that. Go to the browser. Works. Add a new question. We want this multi-choice question. We have the option. Let's say test one. Add. Clears it, and now we have test one. Say test two. Add. It adds it, and if we go to our preview, we can see that we have option set up. So that is indeed how you go about adding fields to a set list for dynamic. So now looking at our form, we've been able to make a form, make a preview. This preview we could have been on another page. We could take what we set up, store that in our database and on our questionnaire page or our dynamic form page where we want to collect form fields. We could use the preview part to sort of render a full-fledged form. While testing this, there's a bug. You caught it. Kudos to you. So the bug is, say we create a question. Let's say, what's your favorite color? And save this. And we add, let's say this is a multi-choice question where we have red and say blue and yellow. We have this showing if we were to add another question. So it adds a new question, but look what happens when we try to edit it. So when we try to edit, it opens both of them up. And when we say, what is your name? It does actually edit the correct one, but now we have both of them in edit mode. It's very easy to fix that and show you. So in order to fix that, there are a couple ways we could go about that. But the easiest way to do that is where we have on edit, we need to check that it's actually the particular field that's being edited. And the easiest way to do that is probably just go to the top of our form, create an edited field. So I could say field we're currently editing is this. It's an edited field. And what I'll do here is on edit, we're going to be comparing that equal to that the label is equal to the edited field, or the name is equal to the, we'll say edited field equal to field.name. And once we have this, we now have to make an extra change because we need to set our edited field. So every time we click here, we would need to set what field is being edited. So, and we could make a function for this. But a quick fix is just come here and set field name as the field being edited. And also here, when we unblur, we sort of turn that off and say we're no longer editing that field. So we could say edited field is empty here, or no. And once we do that, that should take care of that bug. So we could go ahead, add a new question, the sample question, add another question, and when we click edit, that doesn't happen anymore. Okay, so that was it. Very simple and fast way to make replica of Google form or some dynamic form. I hope you've enjoyed this lesson, and if you'd like to see me make videos about any other topics, please let me know in the comments. If you found this helpful, please like and subscribe. It keeps me motivated to make these videos. I just don't make programming videos. I make videos where you apply things to everyday things that engineers build at work or challenges engineers face at work. Thank you again for watching. Have a good time.